All right, guys. First of all, by the way, I'm Emily. I'm your events and membership manager with the New York State Brewers Association. And here we have Justin Sisley. Justin is the founder of CraftKeeping. It is an accounting firm specializing in breweries. For the past 9 years, his team has provided bookkeeping, tax, and advisory services tailored to the craft brewing industry. They also help breweries streamline operations by integrating accounting systems and software for better financial visibility and decision making. With a deep understanding of the unique challenges breweries face, Justin is here today to share how AI can enhance forecasting and drive smarter business decisions. When he's not working with clients, you can find him exploring new breweries, watching F1, or cheering on the Packers and, fittingly, the Brewers.
All right, thanks.
You're very welcome.
Probably won't need the mic too much, but, well, it's packed, so try to, just be conscious of your neighbor. Maybe the video won't actually record any of the seats and people will believe me. Thanks for coming. AI wrote that intro, so I think it did a good job. I am Justin. So I've been doing accounting for 15, 16, 17 years, something like that now. Working with breweries since about 2016 as kind of a specialization. So I'm based out of Austin, Texas, so flying up here was nice. The weather on Wednesday was amazing. We had 94 degrees already last week. It was not fun. Yeah, we'll get into it. Basically, we're going to try to give you some insights into how you can utilize AI, even if you're here and you're not working at a brewery. This translates into many different businesses and even probably some parts of your personal life where you can utilize AI. So why AI and why now? It is becoming more mainstream. Over a third of businesses use AI significantly, and what they mean by significantly probably varies pretty widely, but the point is that it is becoming mainstream. It's not this it's sort of cutting edge, but it's not as this is the future as it used to be, which I think kind of scared people a little bit. We all know that breweries operate on pretty small margins, and there are a lot of 9,500 craft breweries in the U.S. last I looked up the stats. So setting yourself apart from the rest becomes quite challenging, especially in a state like New York where there are so many breweries. In Texas, a lot of land, not as many breweries. So it's even more important up here where people have a lot of options all in a small radius. The main thing that you want to use AI for is to take advantage of its kind of speed, I guess. It helps you boost productivity and just do things quicker, and allows you to leverage data-driven decisions instead of just gut feel, which I know in this industry a lot of it is just a lot of passion and there's some artistry to it, and a lot of things operate on the gut feel. And a lot of times that's right, but there's a lot of times when you need to make an important business decision where gut feel just isn't going to do it. And finally, brewery owners, you always wear 25 different hats at all times. So you're doing the books, you're helping with production and brewing, you're trying to figure out where to sell the beer. It's a lot and it gets tedious, and so that's where you can leverage some of the AI capabilities to help with the parts you don't like so much, free up your time to attend to the parts that are actually going to be more fulfilling and make the business more profitable, more efficient. I will say AI is not going to take over for a bookkeeper or accountant. You should still hire us. Case in point, there's two companies, one actually very recently. There's one called Scale Factor and one just recently called Bench. They were companies that each of them raised over $100 million because they said that they had solved bookkeeping using AI and algorithms. Both of them no longer exist. So they had some serious money thrown at them and they still could not resolve that. And that's across all industries. There's going to be these early players that say they've solved it, and the reality is that AI is a tool and it's not likely to replace anything or anyone in the near future. So while it is becoming more mainstream, though, it's not ubiquitous. It's not everywhere. So there's a chance now for people to be early adopters, and that could give you an advantage in a competitive industry. Has anybody who's used ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or something like that? So everybody's got a little bit of experience at least. So just a quick agenda. We'll kind of go over some specific areas of the brewery where this will come into play, and then go over some of the common objections that people have, try to overcome some of those, figure out an actual use case that'll be pretty comprehensive, and then at the end we'll have just some time for questions, and I'll get you guys like an actual step-by-step, here's what you can do tomorrow to utilize this, because otherwise it can become kind of overwhelming. So starting with operations, one of the really cool use cases I've seen is sentiment analysis. So there are specific softwares for this, and I should say going forward throughout this presentation, when I say AI, I'm not referring to a specific software. I'm just kind of referring to the general concept of it. There are different softwares for different pieces of everything, and then there's the general kind of AIs like the ChatGPTs and the Claudes. But there are specific softwares that do sentiment analysis. So one of the use cases in your operations can be running something like that to analyze Facebook, Instagram mentions of specific types of beer that are trending. You can limit that to geographic scope, so just near you. What are people talking about in terms of types of beer? Go on Untapped, have it analyze reviews that have been left around your area or for specific types of beer. It'll help you get some insight pretty easily into what you should be making. And it's not something that I think people are really doing otherwise. You just kind of rely on, I heard this, is going to be real popular this year, this kind of hops, whatever. This provides an actual data-driven way to look at that. You can look back historically to see, okay, we're coming up in spring now. Well, let's see what happened last spring. What were people talking about? What were people rating highly? Use that to guide your decision making for the next few weeks on what you're going to brew. Everybody's probably used AI to write like emails where you're just like, I want to tell this guy to shut up in a nice way. It's really good at that. It's really good at just writing things. So like descriptions and flavor profiles. So just something that could set you apart too is just rather than saying, here's a New Zealand hazy IPA, you can write a short description real easily if you just plug in the ingredients into the chat model and it'll pop out a quick description. So something that might help just on your menu, get more sales going for your beer. And then one of the things I really like it for too is staff scheduling. So you can actually incorporate a ton of different variables, but specifically like if you have a sales forecast and you're going to be busier certain times of the year, certain weeks of the year, obviously weekends, like you can build all these kind of variables into a model and then have it schedule your staff ahead of time. So rather than you saying like, okay, we got to fill in a 11 to 4 shift, and then I've got James only wants 20 hours a week. I've got Claire over here that wants 40 hours a week. All these variables come together and you're sitting there with like, I don't know, a pie chart for some reason, and then you're trying to fit it all into one calendar and it's tedious and time consuming. All that stuff can get plugged into your AI models and then it spits out an optimized staff schedule within seconds. So play around with that. We're going to go through kind of quickly here the overview stuff, but we'll talk more about like what that actually could look like once we get through just kind of some examples. Next would be accounting and finance. I do have to kind of hit on this one. I know it's probably boring for most of you. I should have probably just left the accounting part out of the description for this presentation entirely, and there might be more people here. But cost optimization and risk management, it's analytics powered by AI can be running, all the time. So you can have something that's going to be looking at spending patterns, for instance, on credit cards. There are some fairly AI forward companies that have built this into the spend platform already. There's one called Ramp that we use that is building in a lot of AI features. So just looking at automatically detecting things that deviate from normal spending patterns and having that alerted to a manager or the owner, in real time, rather than finding out when you're going through your bank statement, like, oh, somebody, hacked our account, credit card got stolen, there's a bunch of charges, nobody knows what they are, and we didn't find out till a month later. Or, God forbid an employee decides to just go rogue and start putting their Costco on the company card every week. You'd have a warning for that earlier. It's a way to kind of insulate yourself from risk a little bit and help predict future, cash flow as well. Yeah.
So we're talking about like accounting and financial data, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how to safely integrate, a third-party AI into a Square or a QuickBooks or something like a bank account, like we're talking about, that would be highly sensitive. Is there a safe way that you would recommend doing that, or what we would check for, look for, or how that process would flow?
It's going to highly depend on what AI you're trying to integrate. So there's, like I said, Gemini, ChatGPT, there's a ton of them that are more generalized. There comes a point where, like, we don't know yet what it's going to look like. So specifically for banks, like, banks aren't going to let an AI, third party integrate with their system, I don't think anytime real soon here. If anything, they're going to build their own kind of integration on the back end and make those features available to you. At this point, like, your best bet is to download the data and then upload it to whatever AI model you're using. It's a more manual process, but yeah.
Like these QuickBooks coming up with something like that? 'Cause like QuickBooks is.
They keep saying like check our AI reports, but it's nothing like this.
Yeah, everybody wants to say they have AI so that they can say they have AI. And QuickBooks they're trying. I have a love-hate relationship with QuickBooks, so maybe a little more hate than love. But yeah, they're trying, but it's not like what you want to get to is the point where you can say, type into a box in QuickBooks and say, hey, what was my sales of my IPA last month, right? And have it just answer. It can't do that, and I don't foresee that happening anytime real quick. We will actually talk about how you can do that, because you can do that now, just not within QuickBooks. We'll get to that. But security is also a risk. I'll get to that too a little more in depth. For now, let's leave it at like a bank, for example. Yeah, I don't think you're going to find an integration for that anytime soon. But there are advances coming, I'm sure. Like even just. No, it would be platform dependent. So like Ramp, the credit card company Ramp, they have that built in, but they're using their own home built AI. They're not connecting it to another ChatGPT or something like that. So you'd have to find like a platform that's using it, and then that's where that kind of comes from. Chase is not doing that. Other than the fraud alerts that they've had for a while, they're not doing any more than that right now. But it'll come. I'm sure that sort of thing will come quickly to all the banks and credit card companies. Like that's low-hanging fruit for them at this point. So there are third-party reporting softwares that you can use that will plug into like QuickBooks. So you could get to a point where you have QuickBooks exporting into a Google Sheet, and then you have the Google Sheet connected to an AI that is monitoring the transactions from there. It's a way to bridge the gap that's probably a temporary fix for now, but it can be done, even if you aren't using a a bank or credit card platform that does have the ability to do it on its own. Something that I'm, a nerd, so something that I'm kind of excited about and something that we are going to start offering our clients in the near future is kind of this KPI management, profitability analysis, that sort of thing. So we're going to be providing a dashboard that will be updated daily and pre-programmed with your KPIs. And so whether that's, I would just want to know yesterday's sales. I want to know yesterday's sales divided by, payroll hours, so I can see, sales per payroll hour. Whatever metrics you want, even non-financial metrics, if you just want to have headcount displayed constantly, table turn time, that sort of thing can all be kind of programmed into these dashboards that will then update automatically, allowing you kind of insight into metrics from different systems. So like your headcount is in Toast or Arrived. Your financial data is kind of in Toast and kind of Arrived, or it's kind of in QuickBooks, depending on which financials it is. And then your payroll is a separate software still. So we're putting those together into a single place where you can kind of log in and see everything that's most important to you in one spot. Making that more accessible is something that we're putting a huge focus on, because right now it's just, you don't have time to do it every day, because you literally don't have time to just log into Gusto, log into QuickBooks, log into Toast, and like pull all these different things together into a spreadsheet. The other thing too is like we've developed kind of a chat assistant that will have your transactional data and be able to answer your questions in real time. So this is something that we have now. We haven't rolled it out to our clients yet, but we do have it. And so I did a little playing with it earlier. I'm gonna go away from the mic now. So what I did here was I uploaded just a year's worth of sales data by day and every single beer. So it was something like 15,000 lines of data in an Excel file showing every single day how much you sold in each beer that you have. And then I uploaded a P&L for the year by month. That was it. That was all the prompting I did, was just, here are the financials to use when I ask you questions. And so, what was my best-selling beer in September? And you can see the logic here. So it's actually kind of showing you what it's thinking. So it does some weird stuff like, okay, I got an error because date is in all caps and I was expecting it not to be. But it kind of resolved that on its own without any help. And then gets down to kind of logicking through what it's doing, and then finally you get down to the answer. And I checked it, and it's right. And it took, I think this one took 10, 15 seconds, something like that. It would take you that long to just open up QuickBooks. So something like this is just a huge time saver. And the more data it has, the more helpful it can be, right? Like this is a year's worth of data. If you're feeding that in there every day and it knows the breakdown of every single beer you sold that day, constantly updated, I mean, it's going to be able to spot trends way better than you ever would. It's even, next slide, it's even going to suggest things that you might not even be asking it. So now I'm asking how many months was that beer the best-selling beer? And so it pulls up the data for me so I can see that in 5 separate months that was the best-selling beer. And then it even suggests at the end, let me know if you'd like to compare these to the second best beers in the same months or see some trends. So not only will it give you the data that you asked for, it's intelligent enough now to say like, well, if you're asking about this, you may also want to see this. And then going to the P&L too. Okay, what's the trend over the last 12 months in my beer to go sales? I didn't ask it to make a graph, it just did that. Like that's something that if you were to make a graph, you would have to export your data to Excel and then create your little graph and pull the data you want, and if you did it wrong the first time, you gotta go out and redo it. And this was 15 seconds, and it pulls up the chart, gives me kind of a little bit of insight into the chart, not too much, but you can always ask it more, right? So you can say from here, okay, what was the dip in January? You know, was there a specific year that really sold way less in January? And it'll pull that data out for you. These are all the emails that I get from clients that, you know, I now have to log into QuickBooks and figure all this stuff out, or into Toast or whatever. We're enabling people to just have this data at their fingertips. They get a login, they can ask the system, you know, what is the reason for this, or what are the details behind it. You don't have to wait for me to email you back, because it's probably gonna take me a while. My inbox is a disaster. And then just another random question, I asked it too on the same beer-to-go sales, to calculate on average how much of that is my total sales. So it's, and it'll also, again, ask you what else you want to see. Do you want to compare it to things like the taproom beer sales or merch sales? So it's getting more and more intuitive as time goes on too. So like I always say, that the models that we have now are the worst they're ever going to be. They're always getting better. So the stuff we can do is just kind of, it's getting overwhelming, which we'll get to as well. There's going to be some overwhelm here, and I'll try and help you through that as well, because I know it's a lot. But yeah, we'll get on from the financial stuff and move into production, which people might be more keen to hear about how that works, because I think QuickBooks has kind of beaten the AI horse. So people are already aware, yes, I can use this for some financial stuff, but some use cases for the actual production. I know like OlliOps and Ecos, they kind of have processes built in where you can kind of see, okay, I want to build this recipe, I want to brew this one next week, and it'll kind of pull your inventory and say, these are the ingredients you need more of, and you can create the PO, which is cool. If you had that built into an AI model, you could have your schedule built into it much further in advance, or much more detail built into it, so that it can now alert you, hey, you're low on this type of grain that you're going to need in 3 weeks. I know the lead time is a week. You better order this now. And then it can, with one click, create the POs and even send them off to the vendors if it needs to. Another great use, inventory management wise, everybody accumulates just like kind of leftover grain and hops and adjuncts that like you had to order so you didn't run out, but now you have no use for them and you really have no plan. Well, just plug all that into the AI system and say, here's the ingredients I have. What can I do with this? Or like, what's the minimum order I can put in to be able to use up all these extras and still have a good beer that I can sell? Tracking ingredients that are getting close to spoilage dates, and then suggesting, hey, here's a recipe you can use to get rid of these things that are kind of nearing end of life, been in the cooler for too long. Recipe creation, just in general. I forget which brewery it is now. One of the big European breweries is kind of doing an analysis now where they're feeding 1,000 samples a day into a model that has all sorts of sensors hooked into it. They're basically fingerprinting each sample and using that to see little tiny variances in yeast and everything, and coming up with ways that they can kind of optimize their brewing. I don't remember the name of it now, but it's one of the huge breweries, so obviously you're not going to be doing that. But that's the sort of path that we're on, is like everything that starts at a huge brewery like Heineken or something trickles down eventually to the smaller brewers. So that's something to look forward to. Probably not quite doing that now, but you can still have it help suggest recipes. I mean, it's trained on the entire internet. So if you say you want a recipe for this beer, it may not give you a perfect recipe, but you can start there at least and tweak from there. Brew schedules is something I think it has some serious potential for, in terms of kind of like we talked about, just figuring out what you need to order when, and figuring out what the actual calendar looks like, and it kind of meshes in with the staffing scheduling we talked about too. And then process anomalies. This is probably something that's a little more for the higher volume breweries, but having an algorithm or an AI system that's monitoring beer that's in progress for everything that could go wrong, temperatures that are off, and anything that could indicate that it's going to be a failed batch, and make you aware of it soon enough that you can do something about it. So in the end, fewer failed batches and more uniform quality helps everybody. Marketing. I'm not an expert on marketing, but I figured I'd at least throw some ideas out there. So marketing calendars, just knowing when you're going to post what based on whatever events you have coming up. And then it can actually just generate the content too. Images, like the images here were created by ChatGPT, so it can help with images too. It's not always great with like words, like it actually spelled all of them right here, but I've seen some. Yeah, it's crazy spelling on some of the things. I was surprised too. They've improved it lately, I guess. We talked about monitoring social media or sentiment analysis, but like monitoring it too, rather than just a one-time sentiment analysis, having it be monitors. And these are softwares that exist now. So Hootsuite has one, and there's one other software out there too where you can have it just. Which one?
Aorc is a good one.
Okay. Yeah, so you can have it monitoring mentions of your brewery or anything really. If you want to track mentions of anything specific in the industry, you can have it do it in real time. But the way that affects marketing, I guess, is if you notice that one of your beers is taking off on Instagram between whatever 24 to 32 year olds, you're going to market to a 24 to 32 year old differently than you're going to market to a 60 year old. So it gives you some more information that you can use to possibly push that beer if it's trending. Or the alternative is pivot away from a beer that seems to be not going so well. Negative responses, maybe that's the one that goes on sale next week. And then for sales, forecasting is a big use case. Incorporating all sorts of variables. So, within the tap room, you can always look at past data, and that's kind of how we've always done it, right? We've said, all right, well, what did we do in March of last year? And then we'll tweak it a little bit based on what we think March of this year is going to look like. This would have the ability to take into account not only the past data, but also, incorporate that trend and seasonality. But it can also search the internet for any large events nearby and say, okay, well, South by Southwest is coming up for us in Austin, or it's past now, but if we were planning this, it could say South by is coming up. You should plan for a 20% increase because I scoured the web and I saw that all of the restaurants and bars in Austin had an average of 20% increase in sales that week. It can do that. It can take into account weather. So it can go back and analyze the weather for every single day of your sales and correlate the sales with the weather. Then push it forward to say, all right, well, the next couple of weeks are going to be, abnormally warm, and you have a lot of outdoor space. So we should predict more sales in the next couple of weeks for that. Regional trends as well, just in terms of, are specific sales or specific styles really popular in your area? It can find out and build that into a forecast. So all these things that you could do on your own, but will you? Probably not. But it makes it easy so that you can just set it up once and then it's doing that every time you ask it for a new forecast. Key accounts, so sales in terms of distribution. So if you're on tap at restaurants and bars, use this to analyze sales figures and suggest, maybe go spend some time at O'Houlihan's because it seems like they're kind of dipping on their sales. Maybe somebody needs to go visit them and grease the wheels a little bit. One of the things that I've been doing is, I'm sure it's similar here, but in Texas, the Texas Alcohol Bureau, they publish numbers on the actual sales tax for alcohol, and so it's all public data. So something I've been doing is you can feed all that into the AI model, and that'll help you identify bars or restaurants that could be trending up in a place that you want to send your salesperson. Places that you're not on tap yet that seem to be like prime for the market. All that you're not going to do on your own, because it's going to require you to just download this giant data set and try and sit there in Excel for 2 hours and figure out what to do with it. Can be done in seconds with the large language models that we already have. So again, I'm not a sales expert, but knowing what I know about AI and data, those seem like places that are fairly low-hanging fruit for stuff that we can do right now. So pitfalls, objections that you get. Data quality is super important. Garbage in, garbage out. So you got to make sure that your garbage data is cleaned up first. So you guys don't have anything, I'm sure, in your POS that's under no category. Nothing ever gets in there, right? You're lying if you're saying no. I've seen enough POS reports to know that's like way too many things. So just stuff like that. Like, you can't really get accurate predictions or forecasts or anything if you don't have accurate data going in. So it's going to require some cleanup to kind of get that data categorized, get it all cleaned up and in a format that is going to work. But it's a one-time thing, hopefully, right? Like, you clean it up once and then it's good. As long as you establish some SOPs going forward. So, there should be, if you're creating a new POS item, there's a documented step-by-step process for doing so that ensures that somebody's assigning it the proper category. So that's going to take some work up front, but you hopefully then reap the rewards at the back end. Employee skepticism is big, even fear. One of the things you hear all the time is like, well, is this going to take my job? Am I going to be out of work in 2 years because AI? One, I don't think so, especially in the brewery industry. Like, my job is more likely to be taken over by AI than anyone here. But also, like, just making sure that you communicate with the team that it's a tool. It's meant to eliminate the drudgery of their day-to-day, help them be more effective and not replace their expertise. Again, the scale factor and bench thing I mentioned, like, they were trying to completely replace accountants and bookkeepers, and it just didn't work that way. And I don't see a near future where it does. And if you just involve your staff in doing this too, it'll help them to feel ownership of it and see firsthand the benefits. So it shouldn't be if you want to start using AI, just having it come from the top and be a demand that people start using it is going to get you a little more pushback than if you just let them help with it. I've got an employee, he's a younger guy, and just me asking him about it, he was like pumped because he loves AI, and I was like, I don't really know what I want you to do with it yet, but if you want to play around with it and have ideas, let me know. And he was happy to do it. The cost and the ROI concerns too, like we're at $30 a month for a ChatGPT subscription. If that's going to save you 15 minutes a week, I bet you'd trade an hour back of your time for $30. You can get down a slippery slope here, and you end up getting a ChatGPT and a Claude subscription and Genesis Plus and whatever other ridiculous things are out there. But start small and start implementing processes on the small end with a ChatGPT subscription, and you can kind of use that to train yourself to see where else you might go next. Hallucinations, I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but it's always something that comes up, like, sometimes ChatGPT will just tell you something that just straight up isn't true. Again, it's getting better every day. These are the worst we're going to see. It has gotten a lot better. The more recent models from ChatGPT specifically have a lot less of that. And if you're worried about it, you can ask for sources too, especially when you're using it as a Google search, you can have it bring back the actual sources too if you're really concerned. But there's always going to be human oversight required. It's not going to be a replacement for you to do everything. So you're always going to have to do some extent of checking of the work. And then security, he left, but security is a concern. ChatGPT is the one I use the most, so I know the most about it. But that specifically, it's called a SOC 2 Type 2 compliant software, at least if you use the Teams version of it, which I would suggest for anybody who's going to have a subscription on there, go with the Teams version instead of the Plus, because the Plus isn't quite as secure. The Teams version automatically opts you out of using your data to train the model, and it is the SOC 2 Type 2, which is basically it's a certification by the AICPA, so the National Accounting Board, that says like, yes, they've audited this is very secure. You can trust it with accounting type data. And so that goes to the question earlier too of like, we shouldn't fear like putting our data into ChatGPT. So if you need to download a spreadsheet from your bank and upload it into ChatGPT, one, like it's not accessing your bank directly, so that's even more secure than trying to link it to your bank. But two, like even if there's proprietary information in there, the chances of it getting out are infinitesimally small. Like it's almost bank level security. I can't speak to all the other models and how they're using it, but like we talked about before too, like some of these companies are integrating their own models. So if it's a credit card company that has AI built in, I mean, that inherently has to be the same security as the credit card. Same with the banks. So yeah, if you're just feeding it into a free version of Google Gemini, you might be worried a little bit about data getting out. But just as long as you're using a higher end premium subscription, most of them should be pretty darn secure. Okay, might have to just speed things up a little bit here, but implementation wise, we talked about a lot already. It can get overwhelming, so just kind of pinpoint where you're going to find the most leverage from it. So pick one or two areas where just a small improvement could save you a lot of time. So find those tedious things you're doing, and even if you're doing it for just 10 minutes a day, but you can do a ChatGPT, recurring task in there and have it just save you 10 minutes a day. I mean, that's huge already. So pilot it just like your beer, and then kind of go from there. More people don't use it, I think, because they just get overwhelmed. They hear about all the possibility and all the things it can do, and they just never start because it's just information overload. So talked about data. Make sure your data is clean and ready. Otherwise, you're not going to get good results. Choose the right tool. I've been talking a lot about ChatGPT because that's the one I use the most. But every day there's Grok 3 or something now, or 7.9. I don't know. Their naming conventions are usually dumb. But you don't need to have all of them. Start with one and then iterate from there. Decide if that's the one you want or not. Integrations and automations, like we focus on that a lot in our firm, so we help our clients with kind of getting their software ecosystem all put together and talking to each other. So that's still evolving, like we talked about before. Like you're not going to hook ChatGPT into your bank, but there are a lot of third-party softwares out there that can help bridge the gap. And ChatGPT can tell you how to use that too. So like you don't know how to write a script to talk to an API, but ChatGPT can literally give you just step-by-step instructions on how to make that. So it's kind of meta in that way, I guess is what the kids say. So I want to talk about just kind of a comprehensive use case here. Evaluate and scale, I skipped that. Iterate. It's just like brewing, like you start with a recipe and you tweak it and you get better every time, hopefully. So hypothetical use case, kind of putting it all together, and this is intentionally a lot, so don't get caught up in the overwhelm. It would be to do all of this. You're not going to do all this at once or maybe ever, but this is meant to be an example of like how far you could take this. So if you're a head brewer, brewery owner, whatever, planning your brew schedule for Q2. So you're going to use that social media sentiment analysis we talked about. You're going to run it on the geographic area surrounding your tap room. You're going to look for specifically which beer styles were mentioned most during Q2 of last year and make a list of those. You're going to follow that up running the same type of sentiment analysis software on Untapped reviews posted during Q2 of last year. You're going to find the highest rated styles on Untapped in Q2. Now you have two lists. You're going to put those lists together and see where they overlap. That gives you a short list of the styles that you should be looking at brewing for Q2 of this year. At the same time, you're also going to run an analysis, crawling the web, looking for brewery menus that are currently up and seeing, okay, what are the trends on these menus that people are currently brewing? Is there anything that might be new that I'm missing? New type of really cool hops, experimental 45 9.4. Everybody's using it, I gotta get some. Once you know what styles you want to brew, you can feed that into the AI software to help you kind of formulate your recipes. Since you are now a data nerd and you're all in on AI, you've already fed all of your prior recipes into the system. So it's learned what ingredients you like to use, quantities, batch sizes, all that, and incorporates it into new recipes that it formulates. Again, with your diligence, you've also already fed your system the preferred vendors, historical costs for ingredients and packaging, and lead times for all of that. So it knows all of that stuff already. So now you've got recipes listed, and you'll choose a few of those and decide which ones you're going to brew over the next few months. You also have already integrated your current inventory with the AI system, so it knows what you have on hand. So now that you feed it the ingredients, it's going to spit out in one step everything that you need to order, when you need to order it, to make those brews when you need them done. And it's even going to schedule the POs to go out to the vendors when they need to, when so you're not buying everything all up front. And then you've also fed in all of your brewing data from the past. So all of your temperature checks and statuses that you've done in the past, every beer that you've brewed and how much has come out, what the yield is, whether you had to dump it, all that. It knows all that already. So it knows how long each type of beer takes to ferment, how many tanks you have, their capacity, it's got all that. So it'll create a comprehensive calendar that'll say exactly what day you need to brew each batch, which days it'll be taking up tank space, and what day you can can it or keg it or transfer to serving tanks, whatever. Now we can take this even a step further and have the system then analyze the anticipated profitability of each batch and how long to expect before it sells out. Further still, imagine having it know exactly which accounts to sell which kegs to, how much you want to keep on draft, and how much to can and send to store shelves. It knows how fast it'll sell in each format and uses that info along with cost and selling price to decide what combination of format will result in the most profit. So it can tell you, you should keg this batch and sell it through the tap room. You should can some of this one and send it to XYZ store. You should keg this one, put it on tap at these restaurants. That'll get you the fastest sell through at the highest profit. All these things you can do on your own because you have all this data too, but you're just not going to. It'd be incredibly time consuming. But once you have all the data in there, all this can be done in literally 30 seconds. So you can plan out 3 months of brewing and sales and profit and forecast in 30 seconds. It's a big lift. I realize that, and that was meant to be super comprehensive, and then we could probably even go further still. We don't have time for that. But in conclusion, though, ChatGPT did want me to tell you that AI is brewing a new era for craft beer businesses. Really good with that one. But yeah, it's accessible today. Like a lot of the stuff we talked about can be done right now. There are only a handful of things that I talked about that are really just hypothetical at this point. It's not easily done today. I think that's where we're headed, is like, we've got the nuts and bolts of what we can do. It's just you need to cobble together 3 softwares to do it. And so that's where the advancements are going to start coming, is when these people who build the software start building in the AI, so you don't need to connect it to anything else. But focus on small and cost-effective steps to get started. It's not going to happen in a day. And I know nobody has time to really just commit several days to doing this. So find an area, start small. Think about today, before you go to the party tonight, think about one area in the brewery where you think that you could actually implement something, even if it's just using ChatGPT to help your staff write something. Think about one area you can get started. Keep experimenting with it. You're at a point right now where you're the 300 people in this room right now that are definitely in this room. You're on the cutting edge, so you have an advantage over the people that are not in this room right now. So take advantage of it. keep experimenting, keep learning, and hopefully your heads are not spinning too much right now, but I did put together kind of a step-by-step guide that'll get you started. So something concrete that you can do. It'll take you maybe 2 hours, 3 hours tops. It's going to ask for your email. I'm not going to spam you. I'm not going to sign you up for a newsletter. We don't have a newsletter. If anything, I'll just email you to see how it's actually going with the AI stuff, because I do like hearing the feedback from actual brewers using it to see if it's as effective as I hope it should be. And hearing the different problems too helps me to kind of help them iterate on their processes too. So if you want to grab that, I was planning on having it automatically sent to you, but I ran out of time to get ChatGPT to tell me how to code that into our website. So I will email it to you once I land back in Austin. All right. Yeah. Any other questions? Hopefully I can answer.
Have you heard of the program Sintra?
Sintra.
Yeah, it's like
I
a
have not.
program that has 12 employees. They 12 different categories. Like one's like a business developer, one's a copywriter, one's an e-commerce.
Oh, okay.
Focus on one thing on your business. So you
Yeah.
everything, you can connect your Google Sheets and your emails and your calendar and everything. And the employees, the AI employees, will come up with ideas and also develop this is like what collaborations you should do, who you should reach out to based on what you feed the brain.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty cool tool.
Okay.
Your subscription,
Okay. Yeah.
it uses ChatGPT as one of them.
Okay. Yeah.
It's basically like organizing ChatGPT instead of always asking it to do a different thing.
Right.
Everybody has it broken down. All the ways.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's got instructions built in, which yeah can get tedious if you're doing that in ChatGPT. I have a bunch of different ones that I have like programmed to do different things.
Folders that I use all the time.
Yeah. Projects are helpful.
I paid for both. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it is good.
All right. Anybody else? I think we're done then. Yeah. Thanks for coming.